Good evening, and welcome to DnDTime Worlds. I am Pete, and I'm excited to build some worlds once more with all of you. Hanging out tonight. I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be a fun one because tonight we're gonna be talking about companion characters. Before we get into it proper, though, just a little bit about what the show is for anyone that's unfamiliar. Here on DnDTime Worlds, we build kind of components that people DMs can just easily kind of place into their respective worlds. It's kind of a fun show. It's very interactive. So I'm going to be kind of calling upon you, chat, to help me come up with some cool ideas. And this night we're focusing entirely on companion characters. Companion characters, I think, are a pretty interesting subject. They're going to be a little bit. I think they're a little bit more difficult than meets the eye, because I think the first instinct when you want to come up with some interesting ideas for companion characters is that, I had a great PC that I made once that, they would work great with a party and travel with them. But it's very easy to kind of fall into this topic of a DM PC. This is something that we actually talked about a little bit. We kind of side branched into DMPCs in the last DnDTime talks, for anyone who was there. But basically what I say a DMPC, that means, a DM's, for anyone unfamiliar with the term, that is when a DM kind of has a character that is in the party, and they are sort of acting, acting as that character within the party, and so they kind of get a voice in the party, but a lot of the times it can be kind of unhealthy, and it ends up can suck some fun out of the game when the DM, for example, the DM has a paladin that's in the party, and then they find a weapon they find a holy avenger, which is a weapon perfectly suited for their character in the party when it should be more focused on the players. So that can be a bit of a mistake from time to time. Max Mikester, I see you there in chat. Hello, Max. How are you? Good to see you out tonight. So there's definitely a little bit more intricacy than you think, and so in thinking a little bit myself about what makes a companion character compelling and interesting, I think there are three kind of general categories that we're going to be really wanting to consider as we start coming up with these ideas. And those are personality, purpose, and party dynamic, by which I mean the kind of dynamic that they generate within the party. Shogun Turtle 890 says, you missed your French lesson. I definitely have missed every French lesson that has ever presented itself to me. I think the only word that I know is oui. Nope, I also know bonjour, and I know some of the lyrics to Champs-Élysées by Joe Dassin, which is an amazing song. If anyone doesn't know Champs-Élysées, I highly recommend looking up that song. It's beautiful. That's all my French. So I guess I will have to catch up with whatever this French lesson was. So anyway, I was talking, personality, purpose, and their dynamic within the party. So by personality, I think that one's pretty obvious. Just like with any NPC, you want them to have aspects of them that make them interesting, engaging, fun to interact with. They have to have a personality that's dynamic, and that, adds something to the table. A companion character that's just kind of silent, and just kind of walks next to the party and kind of watches them do things. I mean, there's no reason to have that companion with them if they're not going to interact in some way and kind of offer something to the group for the time that they're kind of joining the party. Because that is, again, the idea of the companion character. It's, a character that temporarily travels with the party. Next is their purpose, and this is one of the kind of key ideas that you need to consider when you're thinking about why you want to put one of these type of characters into the world. And their purpose can be, any range of things. And down below, I kind of have a list that I'm going to go through of a bunch of different kind of reasons and types of characters that you might have with you. But their purpose might be the party. Maybe an example that was brought up in talks on Wednesday also was a cool idea. I believe it might have been Game Master's Vault who was talking about having a bard that was following around the party because he's chronicling their tales and very interested in them as a party, and so wants to therefore wants to therefore kind of like sing their praises, and that's a cool and kind of interesting reason to have a person in the group. Maybe their purpose is that the party wanted a healer, so they hired a cleric, and they're kind of, you know, paying them on the regular to kind of be in the party and heal. But, you know, this brings us next to our kind of last category of party dynamic. That situation I just described, where they have like a cleric that they've hired to heal for their party, that creates an interesting dynamic because they have someone that they're kind of relying on now to help them out in dangerous situations. I mean, if they're hiring a healer, they're trusting someone with their lives, very literally in this case. And they're also trusting that person based on payment. So it creates this kind of tentative, like, is this guy going to bail on us when the going gets tough? Have we paid them enough money? Are we making sure, can we afford to, like, maintain them for as long as we need them? What are the kind of conditions of their grouping? And yeah, there are a lot of different ways to, there are a lot of different kind of degrees by which you can look at that particular idea, and I think we'll talk about that as well in a minute. But yeah, those are kind of the three core things that we're going to be thinking about as we're throwing out some companion ideas. Let's talk a little bit about some of these. Let's talk about some of these archetypes that I think are going to work pretty. Well. And we'll look at all of them. And again, as you guys have ideas, just kind of start shouting them out, and we'll begin kind of brewing some of these up. But I would like to not do more than one tonight within the same category, so to speak. So I don't want to do a whole bunch of this first one I was talking about, and this is kind of in the category of that cleric, the merc, which is someone that is hired, and you're hiring someone because you want them to fill a very particular role. The party needs them to heal. They need someone that's really kind of big and strong to stand in the front because they made a party made up entirely of wizards. They need to break into a place, so they've hired an expert in lockpicking. They have a ton of gold, so they've hired just a small peasant in order to carry all of their bags. There are a lot of different ways that this can be kind of played out, and I think there's a lot of kind of interesting things we could do in this archetype, but that's the idea, is usually they have a specific role in mind for someone, and they're there to do one job, and they're being paid for it. And that's, I think, a really kind of simple archetype that we can kind of develop if we want to make a character like that. And I think there's also a lot of variance in these archetypes. You know, these are guidelines. These aren't, you know, the end-all, be-all. These are just ones that work. Max Meister asks, does an animal companion count as a companion archetype? I think absolutely an animal companion, and I think there's different degrees because a companion, for example, an animal companion, like say a horse, someone that they're just a horse that they're kind of riding. I think there's some fun in that, but a horse isn't quite as they kind of lack that personality aspect where they have some kind of say, so they can kind of create an interesting party dynamic with the horse. I mean, the players, I think a lot of the time, even if they have a horse that's completely non-sentient, I see Shogun Turtle has something, we'll talk about that in a second, that's cool. Even if they have something that's kind of just like non-sentient and just hanging out, the players will sometimes latch onto it and almost apply a personality to it. And then Max Meister says, but then I think there's certain degrees as well. Like a horse would be different than, say, a wolf. Absolutely. Especially, I think there's a lot of cool things you could do with, you know, a wolf that they save from, you know, they find a wolf that's kind of caught in a trap and you know, dying, and they kind of rescue it. And, you know, the wolf runs off, but then kind of slowly over time begins to kind of follow the players around in the woods. And then sometime when they get, like, ambushed, the wolf shows up to help and kind of defend the players a little bit. I think you could kind of do, like, a tsundere wolf. And I think that's, like, a companion archetype. And that's, like, you know, a character arc. And then definitely animals are a little bit more reasonable than, you know, sentient characters, because it doesn't feel like an animal will never feel like a DMPC. So I think calling them an archetype is definitely reasonable. I'll put it on the list, Max. You've talked me into it. Animal, and they're animals, and that's an animal fact. That's an animal fact, folks. Shogun Turtle says hiring a person to smack coconuts together to make clopping noises. This is one of the most important things that you can do as a player character. Make sure that in every town you go to, you find at least a couple of hirelings to walk behind you with coconuts, if coconuts are within the setting, your homebrew setting. And also, I don't recommend playing in settings that don't have coconuts. That was a meme. Shogun Turtle also says, I had an awakened bird. That's a wizard. Wait, an awakened bird? So, yeah, okay, no, I'm interpreting this right. I'm pretty sure saying that the bird itself was a wizard. And that's just a very funny one. That's just a good one. That's our animal archetype that we've created. This crazy bird wizard. And I assume that that's kind of in the category of what's the next area. Or maybe not even... Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I think it works in the category of the next, which is the tentative ally. And these are individuals that are working with you temporarily because you have a common goal or purpose. But eventually, there's this idea that your goals will no longer align, and then you will split up, or, you know, even maybe it's some kind of like rogue or villain that once you're no longer kind of need each other, then all of a sudden you realize that you're kind of foes. And this is an archetype I would call the tentative ally. There's a lot of ways to kind of create this, but I think that this is really strong. In terms of purpose, I mean, the purpose is whatever, you know, you decide that their purpose is in the moment. But as far as party dynamic, this is a really interesting party dynamic, because now you have someone that's, you know, on the same side as them, but that they kind of mistrust, or they don't really know. You know, having this kind of not understanding, in a way, is a little bit similar to the one we just talked about. The less you kind of know about the party, the motivations of the person that's working with you in your party, a lot of the times that can be a lot more interesting to have with them. It was a magpie that casts spells and uses message to talk to people. That's absolutely delightful, Shogun. Absolutely delightful. Next one we have here is one I would call the guide, which is any character that's just kind of with the party, that is knowledgeable and is there to show them around in a space. When they go into any kind of new territory, it's a very common trick of the DM to give them a guide. And that guide doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, a guide can also be some of these other categories as well. You can, you know, be guide kind of is more focused on their purpose. But, you know, you walk into a forest, and the ranger that kind of patrols that forest and makes sure there are no enemies or villains in the space, comes around and, you know, introduces himself and agrees to help the players navigate the space and kind of tells them what to expect. It lets them go into a space that feels open when there's nothing to hang on to, and then you put a guide in the party to kind of begin pointing out, you know, different points of interest and develop the player's interest in an area without really giving them a lot of giving them something to hang on to, so that eventually the guide can leave and they'll have some stuff to do over in the party. I see Trust a Flumph has joined us. Hello, Jeremy. It was good to have you. Shogun Turtle 890 has unlocked the gunslinger. I have not even unlocked I haven't even unlocked the bullet yet. But congratulations, Shogun. Jeremy, you too. You guys are monsters. The next kind of archetype I'm going to mention is the hype man. This falls in the category of that bard I was talking about before that kind of joins the party to, you know, sing praises, sing songs, go on, so on, so forth, what have you. Also, I think another character that might fall in this category, maybe they're, you know, an up-and-coming, like, young adventurer, or just, like, a fan of the adventurer's exploits that want to join the party because they want to be part of the legendary adventuring troupe, ... And these can be really fun because it gives that party this sense of, oh, wow, we're important, we're making an impact, we're known by the world, we're gaining renown. And that can be a really cool type of character to have. Another one I would say is just kind of the neutral, and this isn't necessarily a character that this isn't necessarily a character that's completely oblivious to the party. You know, you're moving with them for a reason. Maybe you're both taking the same train to the same location. So by necessity, because you're with them, you know, you have to kind of travel with them. So, you know, your continued arrival, you know, your arrival at the destination you have in common is an idea, but that's not necessarily, you know, the reason why you're kind of getting together. You know, your reasoning is more of your companionship is more of circumstance than of design. And these are kind of the 5 categories that I came up with, but if you guys have other ideas, like Max was pointing out animals as a kind of another one that we were talking about a little bit before. If you have other ideas, we can also do other ones, but this is just, I thought, a good place to start kind of brainstorming. So now that we're kind of getting into it, what is it that you guys would like to start with? Is there anything in particular that you think kind of resonates with you? Any kind of ideas from what I've been talking about now that have caught your interest in one form or another? And I don't know if I ever mentioned this comment from Reflected 10.8, but an elder god trapped in the form of a goldfish is a very fun kind of animal companion NPC, and I'm gonna put that idea down here. And is that the right spell size? Yes, it is. An elder god trapped in the form of a goldfish. Xandaril is hanging out as well. Hello, Alex. It is good to see you once more. As it always is. All right. In that case, for the first idea, I'm probably gonna throw something out here. So I was very interested in building a guide character, because that's one that I think is a really good thing to have in your kind of back pocket as a DM. So I think let's start with one of these kind of guide archetypical characters. So if we're going to build something that's, in this archetype, oh man, I love me a Gunther. He's basically a companion. Shogun Turtle puts a couple other ideas here. Love interest, also intelligent weapons. Both of those could be types of companions. In particular, I think the intelligent weapon is kind of like an overarching idea of like what something can be. I think there's definitely a place for considering those, companions of sort. They're kind of traveling with you. They have their own goals. Usually that's the sign of having distinct goals is usually the trademark of a fun, intelligent weapon. So I think that kind of falls into the category. And love interest, I don't know if love interest I'd necessarily like put into a companion. I think you could make a companion that was a love interest, but I don't know if it's as modular where we could make like, this is a love interest that you can throw in every campaign, because love interest is so subjective to character. But just like, a romantic, making that a personality trait of any kind of character that we end up doing, I think could definitely be cool for sure. But let's start talking about maybe like a guide NPC, because again, these are ones that I think are really good to have in your back pocket. So when we're talking about this, we want to have, to begin with, some idea of the territory that is their domain. We want to have, we want to know where they're guiding and what kind of area that they're an expert in, because we don't want to necessarily put them, we don't want to build them for a place. Like, we don't want to build someone who could only be a guide in this one region. We want to build someone like, oh, this is someone who's a master of whatever city he's in. This is a ranger who knows their forest. This is a dwarf that is familiar with this mountain range. And I think one of the more interesting ones is a city, kind of a city domain. And to just start kind of like throwing out, because I think a great place to start when you're thinking of ideas like this is, you just start kind of making decisions about what the character is going to be. And then once you kind of start making those decisions, they begin to inform one another, and you just start to get something, you start to move somewhere. So I think we're going to go with a male, hangs out in cities. What race do we want to go with for this guy? I think we want to make something a little bit interesting. I don't know if I want to do a human, or maybe even any of the classic ones. What about a Goliath? Because when I think of a Goliath, I don't necessarily think of a Goliath as the kind of character that would be very like street savvy. I think of them as kind of like mountain dwelling, clan having what, so on and so forths. So we're going to have this kind of male Goliath who's an expert in the city, and so let's start thinking about some reasons. Why are they in the city, for one thing? And how have they become so kind of, engrossed in this city lifestyle? And maybe, and this is applying story. You see, my first thought was, and I think this is a cool storyline that we could use, and you know what, I'm going to write it down anyway. Has the city that this Goliath is in has grown up around the ancestral home of his clan. He knows the layout of it more from a geographical how do I spell that? Geographical sense than a kind of, than a more landmark based one. So this is kind of a guy that you have this big kind of pseudo giant is essentially what the Goliath race is. So you have this kind of big, Goliath-like creature that walks around the, or not Goliath-like, I guess he's a Goliath, that walks around the city and kind of has this like innate connection to the land that the city is on top of. This would make a great trash druid, I feel like, if we were building him for the land of D&D time, but has this kind of, innate connection to the physical land that it's built upon, and probably like marks things in a very strange ways. Like, rather than talking about the Capitol building, he mentions the name of the hill that the Capitol building is on, and kind of brings you, oh, you want to go over to that weird building that's on such and such here? Allow me to bring you there. And so his purpose, obviously, is a guide meant to show you around whatever city you're on. The archetype that he kind of brings to the table. So let's talk his kind of archetype, or I'm sorry, the dynamic that he brings to the table. And this is what I instantly like about this NPC now, is that this character has a both complete and imperfect knowledge of the terrain. He describes things by purpose and geography rather than by name, by official name. And this would force players who interact with this character. It would force them to kind of try and put themselves on this character's level, and we're going to name him, and this is one of my favorite ways of naming things, we're going to name him Vogue. I see what I did there is I slammed my hand on the keyboard, and we're going to name him Vogue Turf. That's his full name. I slam my hand on the keyboard, see what I get, and then sculpt it a little bit. And that's Vogue. Vogue is a good name for a Goliath. That feels right, y'all. Baby, it's you. You're the one I need. So it kind of forces players who interact with this character to think on the character's level. If they want to get to a particular type of store or a particular person's house, they end up having to describe it physically using their using their kind of imaginations. So in a lot of ways, this NPC is almost a puzzle. Like, you know that he knows, because he's seen the whole city, he definitely knows where the magic items shop is, but how do you describe what a magic item shop looks like to someone who doesn't recognize it as what it is, and who doesn't, like, know the name, even if you know the name of the place? That makes, like, a really kind of interesting guide, I think, because there's, like, a little bit of work to it. It's, you know, interaction, it's role-playing, and it would kind of engage players. So I think this is, like, a really strong guide NPC to use in any kind of city area. And so, yeah, I think that's a good start. If you guys have any ideas for this dude, make sure you call him out, and I will get it in. But we could probably work on another guy as well. I feel like we can probably, you know, burn through quite a few of those tonight. Diadems, hi Pete in chat. Diadems, hello to you as well. It's good to see you. It's good to see you this evening. Today we're talking about some companion NPCs. If you have any ideas for some companions to go through, please call them out. So what's another one? This would be, let's do one that's just completely, let's do one that's just kind of completely neutral. And that would be, what do we want to do? We just did a man, so for starting to kind of decide things, that's going to be our strategy tonight. We're just going to start deciding some things. So we made a male character last time, female, gnome. And this is a character, in terms of their purpose, and I'll just mark that before, so we have a kind of a nice, consistent categorization. Knows the, and I think that counts as personality. We would go into more detail if we're going to flesh him out more, but he knows the kind of layout. So for this character, and we'll give him a bold as well. He deserves it. So for personality, we're going to start deciding things. Probably, do we want to go more on the... I think we made a character that was kind of like a little bit gruff. So I think this time, and just to go with the gnome archetype, so for personality, boop, boop. Highly intelligent, overbearing, curious, as some kind of, like, you know, baseline ideas for, you know, these are things that I think are very commonly associated with the gnomish race, and so sometimes it works just to kind of put the things that you expect out of a character, to have them kind of be on that character, and we'll make a quick name, see if we can come up with anything out of that in a moment, but what is their, so what is this gnome's purpose? From more of a storytelling perspective, I think their purpose is less one that's kind of, you know, associated with the party, and more of a purpose that is going to be directly tied into just they are just there, as they're kind of, we're doing one of these more neutral characters. There, I did the wrong there. There, purpose is to entertain, and I used putting the term entertain here in quotes because they're not like an entertainer, but to entertain the players in between travel destinations, and kind of how are they going to do that? What is their kind of modus operandi by which they do that? So for one thing, we've called them, you know, intelligent, they're overbearing, they're curious. So extremely chatty, wants to learn everything she can about the party while they're traveling. So yeah, probably kind of like an annoying character, but now there's the question of, so she wants to learn as much. Is she just like very sociable? And let me know what you think. Is she just very sociable, or does she actively like desire to learn? And like, or is she gonna do something with this information in some way? So maybe like compiling a could be compiling a book detailing the exploits of adventurers in the area as a potential idea. That's just that's a first thought. Like, and I don't know if that's super engaging necessarily, but it's kind of a start of a purpose. Because I think it's more interesting if there's like some stake to them choosing to interact with this individual or not. Maybe. And okay, here's I think some of the juice of it. Actually, a very famous author choosing to interact with this character would, in the long run, mean a great increase in reputation for the players. But they don't know that at the time, and may avoid her because she's a bit annoying. And I love the idea of this gnomish character that's just like all up on their business, bothering the absolute kind of hell out of all of your party the entire time. And I gotta come back to the name in a second. Bothering the hell out of the party the entire time. She's this author. She's writing a book. She's talking about inane things, her own trips, her own motivations, why she's there, what she's up to. Discussing the weather, the topics, all manner of different topics. And the players are just, oh God, leave me alone, please, for the love of God, just go to your own car on this train, or go to the back of the caravan if you're in a wagon. And they're just like trying to escape her, and then when they like arrive in their next town and they part ways, they like start seeing her books popping up in like stores all around. This one has like a long-term payoff where either like they choose to interact with, like, oh man, we're going to actually get really famous off of this. Or two, they're like, we missed a huge opportunity to get our names out there as adventurers in a really significant way. Which, that's the kind of thing that's like really fun to throw at a party, when anytime you can make a party kind of have that, oh god damn it, like after the fact moment where they realize that they like missed something like that. That's like the juice as a DM. That's always a lot of fun. But we're gonna come up with a little name here. We got some letters. I said a BRHYE. BRHYE. I like that name. Kind of a Bry is I think what we're going for here. Bry. Bionic Sheba. Hello, it's good to see you this evening. As always. All the books are complete caricatures of the adventures. See, I love that. I love that. Boop, boop, boop. All of the books are complete caricatures of the adventures. What? Sorry about what? No, it's an excellent idea. I listened yesterday, a slight side note to distract from everything. I listened to Beyonce's song Love on Top for the first time ever. And I think it's a pretty old song, but it's a very good song for one thing. I've never been like a Beyonce fan, and even the slightest bit. But I listen to that song, and it absolutely bangs. And her voice is very good in it, and she sings a lot of high notes. But they go into this kind of rhythmic pattern where the chorus is kind of cyclical, and it moves on to the... oh, that is good too. No. It goes kind of cyclical, and as it goes around the chorus, she just keeps moving it up like a half step and then repeating the chorus. So it has this almost like infinite rise to it now that it's stuck in my head, because I cannot get this song out of my head. I've been singing it for the entirety of the last 2 days, and it's like the hardest a song has ever gotten stuck on my head, because it just has this like almost infinite loop quality to it, where it just keeps like raising upwards in my mind as I repeat the chorus like a half step up, and so that's kind of where I'm at right now. So my brain is, I guess what I'm saying, doing two things right now. It's running Worlds, but it's also just replaying Beyonce's Love on Top. But if you never listened to that song, it's pretty good. It'll get stuck in your head. Also, the Bionic Shiva, I'm not sure what you mean, but I'm glad you're here and hanging out, man. That is a genuine statement. I'm glad you're here, chilling. So let's come up to the let's come up to another one. Oh, and also saying, don't forget the potential negative side effects if they are mean to her. Yeah, absolutely. We'll put that right here. If they are mean, actually, no, we'll put that down here. Put it above. If they do, she may leave a, or I don't want to emphasize scathing review of them as adventurers. Which would hurt their reputation. Hurt their reputation potentially. And I love the idea of them kind of walking into a town just like it's so far down the road. They realize that she was famous. They're like, oh, whatever. And then by the time the book's published, it's like almost 3 months further into the campaign. And they just like walk into a bar and there's like 3 people in there that just like mock them and hate them because they were portrayed as these like villainous individuals. That's it. Just more villainous individuals. It's pretty good. Also want to say earlier, but I saw Vogue as a more down on his luck sort of person who got to know the city because it's all he had for a really long time. That is, I think, a cool kind of thing to flesh out his personality more. A bit down on his luck. Has gotten to know the city because it's all he's had. Yeah, and his personality wasn't too fleshed out yet, so I like kind of having that attribute on him to be used at a later time. It's all he's had for a while. Oh man, I'm gonna be doing that all night, you guys. I apologize in advance for that song, but you're gonna be getting a lot of it. All he's had for a while. And that's that's kind of like a cool archetype. You know, it gives him a little bit more. It gives him a little bit more kind of love. And I'm taking this next one from. Actually, I think I can just copy and I can't copy and paste in that way. Nope, can't do it. Got it in 3. And she was saying also just kind of a real kind guy that knows his way around and wants to help find kind of is looking for work, and he finds the adventurers. And yeah, you know, if they just like pay him a little bit, he'd be kind of super grateful for whatever it is that they whatever it is that they wanted help from, and would like work hard to kind of do his best and show him around the city, if it's enough to kind of, you know, get him through the day. Which I think that's a fun dynamic. A lot of the time, NPCs, I like having good kind of wholesome NPCs, like this direction that we're now putting Vogue here in. And man, do I like the name Vogue. I like having those kind of like wholesome NPCs that feel good to interact. Like, as a player myself, I would feel good interacting with this character. Like, just knowing that I like put bread on this like random nice, just kind of big goofy Goliath, put some bread on his table, that feels good as a player. It's those like morally right things. By just doing what you wanted to do anyway, which is have someone show you around the city, you get to feel kind of like, oh wow, we also did a good deed just by doing the thing we already wanted to do. That's just like healthy for a game right there. Shiva says one of our next NPCs to be a real jackass that the players need to work with for some reason. That is a fun one. Maybe that's our tentative ally archetype. I don't know if you were here when we were talking about some of the archetypes, but I was throwing some out there. And I think having someone who is kind of villainous, that can join up the party for whatever it is that they're doing, is also, as much as I enjoy and as a player get excited about the nice NPCs, if you need... Oh, okay, cool. As much as I enjoy and kind of get excited about some of the nicer NPCs, I feel like you definitely need some of those, because it gets flat to just have every character be Vogue. If everyone's Vogue, then why are there adventurers in the world? So, yeah... if there's any, I don't know if you have anything in mind already, Shiva. But if not, let's make someone mean. For starters, what kind of territory do we want to put them in? What is the situation in which they encounter this NPC? If it's someone that's kind of, the term used was jackass, which I think is a fun one to kind of play around with. I'm picturing someone, maybe just Mort-ish, for anyone familiar with Pete and Jeremy's D&D time. Human. I mean, when I think of someone who's a jackass, I think human man. That's my first thought. I picture Mort from D&D time is what I think of. So let's talk about kind of personality, purpose, and dynamic. So we know what we want for their dynamic already. We want this character to be a temporary ally to the party. So a super shady dealer that they're required to escort because he's transporting important goods that need to be snuck in somewhere. So purpose needs to be escorted. Smuggler. Got ya. We have I am null void. Question for you. Please fire away, null void. And also, welcome. Good to have you here. Good to have you here joining us. So, personality-wise, we know that they are shady. We know that they are a jackass. And in terms of, like, what type of jackass, I mean, in terms of, you know, what... I mean, he's obviously evil, I think. He has, in a lot of ways, you know, runs I think that's it. I think we can just say he's evil. I don't know if it matters what kind of evil he is. He's evil. Unless the party is evil, they'll feel a bit guilty about working with them. I'm No Void says, I was playing 2E and my party ran into 2 giants. I want to know what they were. I'm not super familiar with 2E, Null Void. I've only really ever played a lot of the most current edition, 5th edition. I've played like 1 session of 4E. But I mean, I'm also not entirely sure what you mean by your question, because maybe it is something I can help you with. What do you mean by I want to know what they were? Because you mean, like, do you want to know, like, what their stats and, like, weaknesses were? Because that I wouldn't be able to tell you off the top of my head. Or do you want to know, like, what type of giants they were? Like, frost giants, fire giants, storm giants? Because maybe if you describe them, I might be able to help you with it. But yeah, make some, let me know. Bionic Shiva just makes snide remarks about everything the party does, even when saving his life. A real Floon Blagmar type. Fucking Floon Blagmar over here. Yeah, I mean, if you describe them a little bit more, I might be able to answer that for you. I am null. Not just by giants. I mean, there's a bunch of different they could be. Oh, Jeremy, get out of here. I love Floon. Floon left... Floon left an impression. I will say that about Floon. I am Null Void. They were also Sword Co here. Welcome. It's good to see you. Jackass, did somebody call my name? Sword, we love you, Sword. Don't you talk about yourself like that. I don't want to hear you bad-mouthing Sword Co here. They were incredibly stupid for starters. They healed up quicker than usual. They hit me, my 2nd level warrior, just by punching. Yeah, that sounds just instinctively. One of 2 giants being either a hill giant, because they didn't have any iconography, like they were a big, like they didn't have any ice or fire or kind of like cloud iconography. And the other one is maybe they were, she was saying the same thing I was thinking. Trolls. They might have been trolls as well. Because trolls are known for their kind of rapid regeneration. And just some extra insider info. If you hit a troll with fire, a lot of the times it will shut down their regeneration. That's pro strat right there. Sword Co here. I've been here the whole time. Just been lurking because I've been taking care of the zombie baby. Well, you gotta take care of the zombie baby, Sword. If you don't take care of the zombie baby, who is? The bigger than me, 6'4". Yeah, maybe a troll is, I think, a pretty good guess. But outside of that, again, you know, it's also very possible it's something that the DM made up. Fox in the Box has given 250 bits. Fox, thank you so much. That's so sweet of you. Trustaflame says, Legasp. The Legasp indeed. Janglebones. Philip Q. Janglebones. Thank you so much, Fox. Yeah, trolls are best guess. Null Void. Trolls are best guess. So anyway, I think I had copy and pasted it. Hey! Nice, I already copy and pasted it. Just makes snide remarks about everything the party does, even when saving his life. Just a real awful individual to work with. I like the idea in terms of kind of like, I don't know, just kind of put this up here at the top. Is a black market smuggler that's hiding his business practices, that's covering up his business practices with legitimate channels, which makes him kind of hard to, which makes it hard to identify him off the bat as necessarily being a criminal. And the reason I'm throwing this in is I think that this now, I think this kind of like brings this to life as a kind of a D&D scenario where you have this individual, they don't know that he's necessarily doing shady things, and he's helping them, and he's hiring them to guard some very, like, legitimate cargo. Like, oh, yes, I have some very fine silks and spices in the cart, or whatever, you know, the caravan, or whatever that's being kind of, I just need you to accompany me. There may be some thieves or brigands on the path. And then once they kind of get into it, and he starts just being an absolute jerk, the party starts to come to question, like, well, is this even worth it? I just hate this guy. I just want to leave and stop doing this quest for this person. And then all of a sudden, like when something happens and they investigate and they realize, oh man, this guy's a criminal. We can completely turn it around on this fucking asshole and turn him into the guard and make a ton of money. Like, that's a really, I think, engaging kind of encounter. And I think that's a great kind of companion NPC. Xander, I love Jangle Bones. Oh, I do as well. If it doesn't heal, also burn it with fire for him to actually die. Burn most things with fire, except for things that are already on fire. That's some great that's some great advice from Farfel13. How big are trolls? I don't know. Could go either way. Trolls are pretty big, dumb, and variably aggressive. Yeah, I don't know, man. Trolls are going to be our best bet. Without more information, without being there, Null Void, it's going to be tough for us to say any more kind of on the subject. But that's I think, a strong guess. Swordco here. Complete the quest, get paid, then turn him into the guards for rewards. That's an awesome way for this to go. But that's just like, we gotta name him. Shima, you got first crack if you want to name this boy, because this was your boy originally. But unless you have one, I'm going to start doing my classic naming process, as that's what I'm just feeling tonight. Boop. Oh no, there's a 0 in there! There's a 0 in that name. I don't know if that name's going to cut the cheddar. Wime. Wime's his name, and his name is, Wime. Bluv? Bluv is not a great, I like Wime as the first name, because there's something like, I think there's something kind of inherently a little bit, Wime. It feels a little, no offense if anyone somehow is named Wime, I've never heard of that name, but it feels a little like, evilly, oh, it's Wime. It sounds criminally, Bluv is the worst last name ever. We're going to take that. Blunder is closer. Wime Wonder. Vime. Oh, maybe it's like pronounced Vime. Vime. Bunder. I got it now. We're done. Vime Bunderhelm. It's just... Oh, it's such a stupid name. I love it. Farfel13, if your DM described the giant biting or clawing you, it's most likely a troll because most giants don't do either of those things for attacks. He did talk about punching. So it's hill giant's another fair shot. And also, like I said before, it could be something the DM just made up whole cloth, because that's definitely a possibility. We're taking a look back now at our archetypes, see if there's anything else that we want to kind of flesh out. We're talking a lot about trolls. We're talking a lot about kind of trolls and giants. What about somehow like a monstrous companion. Let's make a troll. We know that this. So far, what we know about our new character is a troll. Their kind of name. Let's do name first because I'm having so much fun with this tonight. Their name is EIHRV. Vir. My name is Var. That's a good troll name. Var. I get a lot of Pasta Ben. You want to name our troll Pasta Ben? Am I correct about that, Farfel13? You want to name him? If you can justify to me why this troll's name is Pasta Ben, and he's not a pasta chef, because that's too easy. Why is this thing called Pasta Ben? Then we can... That is 100% correct that it's a pasta chef. Please explain to me why his name is Pasta Ben and we can name him Pasta Ben. That is the condition. Fine. I guess you did it. You did a great job. Carly, I guess this fucking troll's name is Pasta Ben now. And we're putting this Pasta Ben, I think, and I'm feeling a little silly tonight, I think Pasta Ben is in the meme edition, and for the first time ever, oh wait, no, it's not red highlight, it's red text, that is meme edition. You know what, we're switching to red highlight, that's way better. Pasta Ben is immediately in the meme edition, is a troll, wears a colander on his head, like a helmet. Oh my god. Yeah, this would be the thing that you guys want to do. And weird meatball-like growths. Covered in strange meatball-like growths. Encountered out in the woods while camping. And the way I would want to introduce Pasta Ben the most as a character is have the players roll to stay awake, have them and warts. So warts as big as meatballs. Okay. I want the characters to fall asleep somewhere out, just like when they're walking around and kind of doing stuff and hanging, and then the characters fall asleep, and then they wake up in the morning, and it's just Pasta Ben, and he's just there making pasta. Warts as big as meatballs. Oh my god, carries a pouch, I don't know what world you're putting Pasta Ben in, pouch full of breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. Like yours. Handy spice pouch. But way worse. It's starting to sound very much like the Pjork of pasta. I'm pretty sure that Pasta Ben is the Pjork of pasta. But since now that we've come up with this, I mean, really, Pasta Ben, we've made the Farfel13, you monster. 18 intelligence. We've made the perfect character now, I think, with Pasta Ben. So, I don't know, I think that's it. I think we're done. I think that now that we've made Pasta Ben, we can finally take our break. By that I mean it's 10 o'clock. So, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. I will be right back. We'll come back, and I don't know if we're going to go back into Pasta Ben, but man, Pasta Ben. We'll be right back. Oh, didn't switch the screen. Hi, I think I'm back. And if I'm not, then I don't know where I am. Alright, we're making some companion characters. We got Vime Bunderhelm. We've got Pasta Ben. Pasta Ben is a blight upon this. Does Pasta Ben power his kitchen by putting buttered toast and a cat on a generator to make infinite electricity? Let me just answer that by... This is the most meme thing we've ever built. Does Pasta Ben power his kitchen by putting buttered toast and a cat on a generator to make infinite electricity? Yes, is the answer. I think the answer to that is very obviously, yes, he does. And then we'll put, just to add a little mystique, or so the legends say. And Pasta Ben, I think, is as complete as he could possibly... I think he's as complete as he could possibly be. I think Pasta Ben is a perfect creation of God and man, and he should be revered as really just the perfect companion NPC. And since we're flying too close to the sun right now on Wings of Wax, so let's ground ourselves a little bit more and dive back in. What do we got so far? What haven't we kind of played around with yet? We haven't played with the kind of, the hired help yet. Crowley, as good as the Postsaia is, we can spend more time upon Pasta Ben. I refuse, but I do acknowledge that that's a great joke. Max Meister, hired help. Yeah, sure. We can go down that category. For certain. Allow us to do so. I suggest Bartholomew. I kid. Yeah, that might break some of the DnDTime adventures if Bartholomew was available to be hired to go out with you on your adventures. Every party needs a maid. Matty Morgs, welcome! It is good to see you this evening, my brother. Every party needs a maid. Alright, yeah. Maid. I'm actually very into the idea of an adventurer maid. Adventurer maid. A specialized hireling that's an expert at removing blood stains, sharpening weapons, collecting natural spell components, foraging for berries and roots and other free sustenance. Maid, and I think this is there's not just one adventurer maid. There are, tons. I think there are tons of adventurer maids, and it's a business. There are tons of these things just kind of kicking around. Gamer Lesbian says, can her weapon be a broom? Absolutely, her weapon can be a broom. Her weapon, or I don't even know if it necessarily has to be a her weapon. I don't know if maid is necessarily gendered. I think maid is just like anything that I think anyone could be a maid. But if we want to make our maid, give us a name then, and we can we can start fleshing out our individual one. Her weapon is absolutely a broom, and she wields it. She wields it like a quarterstaff. In parentheses, I'll just put here stats of a quarterstaff. Proficient with it, but not necessarily powerful. And it's an extremely competitive market, being a gamer maid. Being a gamer maid, yeah, hundo percent. And I feel like expensive. Absolutely. Every adventurer wants one of the real adventurer maids to go around and do all of, like, it just makes adventuring so easy when you have someone who's going to, you know, bury bodies of all the goblins that you kill. Buries and burns bodies. Does a lot of the things that adventurers don't do. I feel like an adventurer maid would be a great opportunity to show the players how complicated adventuring would actually be. It would be kind of like your George R.R. Red hides the evidence. Yeah, I love that. Hides evidence. I feel like this is a real George R.R. Martin style character, where it's like, where it's more like, at the end of George R.R. Martin has kind of a known quote where he talks about how at the end of the Lord of the Rings, and they describe how Aragorn ruled well, and then he always thought that was ridiculous, like, well, he just ruled well, there should be more to it than that, and he talks about how, you know, what was his tax code, things like that, so on. He riffs on that a lot. I feel like the Adventurer Maids is that way, your way to do that as a DM, where the Adventurer Maid starts doing all these things that the players never did, and now they realize, man, yeah, we probably should clean up all the goblin bodies, for example, after we finish these things. We probably ought to go and apologize to the live ones of the individuals that we kind of are unable to rescue. Things like that. Trust a Flump also throws out, as a plus, adventurer maids are also great at intellectual tasks as well. As a plus, adventurer maids are also great at more intellectual tasks as well, such as puzzles or riddles, puzzies and riddies, as they say. Carries around bleach to watch where the blood. Yeah, definitely a lot of blood removal. We've built the adventurer maids, which are great hirelings. And I don't know, I'm actually okay. I was going to say, do we want to make a specific one? But I'm okay with just making the archetype of this is what an adventurer maid is. You go into a town and you can hire an adventurer maid. Every dungeon is just another tomb without an adventurer maid. Oh, this is one wonderful. I assume that was intended to be a slogan. There, Farfel. I don't know, I really like this. I feel like this is something that's like, I feel like, well, for one thing, I mean, you could definitely use this in the land of DnDTime, but this is something that I feel like you could almost put into a game if it was like just high fantasy enough to have like, I think a game that was like just high magic enough. I can almost definitely picture, from what I've seen of Waterdeep, I can absolutely picture this business existing in Waterdeep. People that work for adventurers and do all the nitty-gritty of adventuring so that they can focus on adventuring. I completely can buy that in that setting. Forgotten Realms. Adventurer maids know all the secret passageways for minions that adventurers never seem to take. We'll put it on the list. Yeah, I'm feeling this archetype. Jeremy, make sure you put adventurer maids in Waterdeep if you're listening still. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good one. Max, I don't know if when you said hired help that was where you thought we were going to go, but I love where we ended up. Next up, what do we want to do next? What haven't we played around with yet? We kind of done a neutral. We haven't done a hype man. We haven't done any kind of person that's designed to like promote the party in some way or otherwise, exclaim the party's renown. Or oh wait, I have one I would like to do. I want to do a lovable enemy. I want to do like an enemy that it's kind of following the adventurers down. That's too weak to be on the adventurer radar. And they just end up kind of liking him for trying so hard when there's no chance of him ever actually killing them. So even though he runs at like the 15th level barbarian with a knife and goes to stab, it was like, well, the intent was to kill, but he's just so adorable. Matty Morgs, like an Elmer Fudd. Yeah, like an Elmer Fudd, I think is a reasonable one. I feel like he's more, I guess, Bugs Bunny. I guess Bugs Bunny is basically a high level. He's like a level 20 wizard. He casts so many conjuration spells. He like makes copies of himself. He's definitely proficient in disguises. Got some rogue elements there. Bugs Bunny is a high level character. So yeah, maybe Elmer Fudd is that outclassed. Bemblem. We're gonna just take that verbatim. Bem. I am Bemblem, the mighty goblin, legend of yore. I love this. A powerful goblin that attempts to intimidate the party into handing over their goods and funds. I'm thinking Chuckles, the silly evil piggy from Dave the Barbarian. I'm unfamiliar. I know the show, but I don't remember Chuckles. But I do remember Dave the Barbarian because I'm pretty sure the theme song had a bit in it where it went barbarian, and that's it. I'm pretty sure the theme song had that. So maybe it's the same thing. Completely ineffectual. Completely ineffectual. Provides comic relief. And I feel like comic relief is almost is almost an archetype in itself. And having a comic relief character can sometimes be really healthy. If there's like an easy comic relief character around, especially like there are a lot of D&D games when things can get pretty dramatic, and then having Bemblem there to always kind of show up and try and stab the party, or do whatever Bemblem's gonna do, can probably feel pretty good. Makes the party feel powerful. This kind of character, and I feel like, as much as we haven't talked about the personality, I feel like I already completely understand Bemblem in his entirety. I know everything there is to know about Blemblem almost instinctively from just the line, Bemblem, the mighty goblin legend of yore. Makes the party feel powerful by so overwhelmingly outclassing this foe. They probably won't kill him, but I don't know. He's a villain, but he's so charming, cute, and or funny that you'll always end up giving him what he wants anyway, because he's silly. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes the party will probably end up handing over what he wants anyway. because they enjoy him. And that just seems like, I don't know, there's something very fun about that to me. I would love to run this. I would love to run this little guy who's just very overconfident goblin. Game Master's Vault. Hola, nerds. Hola to you as well. Game Master's Vault. For anyone unfamiliar, hola is Spanish for hello. I'm fully convinced the first party to make contact with Bemblem will murder him immediately. Crowley, I believe that Bemblem would be murdered by you if you encountered Bemblem. I'm pretty sure you would murder Bemblem. But I wouldn't murder Bemblem. I would love him and cherish him for all time. I like the idea that Bemblem actively wants their garbage, sort of like, and actually makes their lives easier without realizing it. We're almost getting a Trash King vibe from Bemblem now, which I'm into. Likes a lot of the things that the players toss aside. Yeah, this is the situation where he starts talking and I just shoot him. Yep, that sounds like a very honestly, as much as I'm feeling kind of Bemblem, I can definitely picture a lot of parties instantly killing him, and then me as the DM being like, oh no, Bemblem, I had so many, not big plans, but I had so many just very small plans for Bemblem. Vassal Zeju says, his minion is an adventurer maid who is more competent but doesn't care about being evil. Has hired an adventurer maid? Sure, why not? Has hired an adventurer maid or an otherwise more competent non-evil assistant. And I can picture, again, like the minute it's garbage can, not a garbage can't. Pretty good, Game Masters. That's pretty good. I feel like, again, like the minute you said that, Vassal, it was just an instant understanding of who this character is. And, like, I picture the side assistant character who's, like, far more competent as all dumb villain side, like any not comic book villain, because comic villains can be serious. Any, like, jokey cartoon villain always has, like, a better assistant. And, well, I mean, usually they're evil, and they're just better at it. But I like the idea that the assistant is just, like, almost like a dad kind of figure, who walks around, like, apologizing. I'm so sorry about Bemblem. He's harmless, really. You know, just, we'll be out of your hair any minute, I'm certain. Farku, greetings, welcome. If you're hung with regard to the number of points that you've had, the points are being calculated differently now. They update more frequently, so you may have more than you would think. Vessels Age, I think of, oh wow, we got two people coming up. I think of Dr. Draken from Kim Possible, the Shigo to his Draken. Yeah, I think that's a very good comparison. I feel like I've seen that in a lot of places, although none of them are really, like, coming to my head right now, but Shigo and Draken is a great example of that kind of dynamic interplay. But maybe also if he has a companion character, I feel he's harder to put into a party, because I'm picturing him, like, following along, like, I didn't get you today, but tomorrow, look out, I'll be robbing you immediately. Mark, it feels like I'm missing a few points. Maybe there's probably been some downtime here and there, as we've been kind of switching things over. There might be a couple things messed up, but if they are messed up, they are for everybody. So it should work out in the long run. Matty Morgs, having a kind of porter is always handy, like Nodwick, if you're familiar. A strong character who can haul a lot, a mule, probably one who also offers pragmatic advice that may be underrated or underappreciated. If not a porter, a teamster can work too. I like that quite a bit, Matty. I like that's a more serious one. Let's move on to a more kind of a porter character. And so what we know about this character is Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. I've seen that show a couple times. But yeah, he's definitely that kind of villain. A real Vigar type. But weak. Vigar's powerful as all hell. So Porter type character. Maybe his name's something simple like John Porter, and he has the name Porter because, like in high fantasy times, you were named after what you could do, like the name Smith, or your Tanners or your Taylors or your. Feels bad to be underrated. If there is actually like a significant problem with your points, we can sort it out. Message me or Jeremy, and we'll try and get that correct. Weak but immortal. Weak but immortal. Okay, I thought you were saying like actually immortal, like God tier immortal, and I was like, whoa, John Porter just got incredible. But yeah, kind of a human draft horse. Incredibly large. Bulky, and durable. Never seems to tire, no matter how much he's carrying. And this seems like a real kind of gentle giant archetype that we're going for here. Gentle giant type of character. Speaks few words, but his advice always proves to be prudent when he does speak up. Gamer Lisbon's Hodor style. Yeah, absolutely. A very Hodor. Maybe like just like I like the idea also that he does have kind of this internal wisdom to him that is, just guiding him and kind of governing the way he acts and thinks. But just definitely very quiet. Very, very quiet, just kind of always, carry things around. Definitely Hodor in build has that, the power to carry a brand across. I don't want to spoil anything. Game of Thrones is happening right now. I'm not going to talk about Game of Thrones, but if you've watched Game of Thrones, then he is very Hodor. No, Farfel, that's the biggest spoiler. You've done the exact thing. Also, just like an active. This is a standing order that I'm going to say forever, especially with regards to new episodes coming out. But for anyone who's catching up, let's just avoid Game of Thrones talk, because I personally care very deeply about spoilers and get really bummed out when I find out something about a thing before I watch it. So, be wary of those sneaky spoils. And I almost fell in my own trap there. Yeah, I like that. Very simple character. Sometimes, this is a character that's really archetypal. You've seen the big kind of quiet working individual quite a few times, I'm sure, in various in various kind of situations. Hodor was a great example. I honestly, I feel like there's a negative stereotype with this character where they're always also kind of like dumb. Which I don't know if we're going that direction necessarily, and so I don't want to list those kind of characters. There's a lot of them. You think of like Mice and Men Lenny, and I don't know. I don't want to do that direction, but regardless, I like John Porter. Very simple, very classic kind of character, and having someone in the party that has that's a great example of a character, because John Porter, we've kind of established him as doesn't speak frequently, but when he does, has kind of like a weight to his words. That's like a really helpful thing to have as a DM when the party's like completely lost. Having the person that you've gotten used to just being in the background suddenly speak up and have advice that you're basically feeding to them as the DM but just like a sudden insight. Yeah, Farfel, get out of here with that. Just look at the. Oh God, those are. Oh no, that book. That book is. I don't have anything to say about Of Mice and Men. That more intelligent people probably haven't already said more. More intelligently. That's pretty good. What else do you guys want to make? Anything else that you guys are kind of feeling tonight? We got oh wait, I've gone way past where I wanted to go. I want to go to right here. We could make a weapon. We could make some kind of intelligent weapon that's kind of a companion NPC. We could make a DM NPC. My list right here on what the DM PC is like, I just wrote, oh no, because that's usually the situation you're in when you're making a DM PC. But we could try that out. I don't know. What do you guys think? What are you into? We've kind of done all of these ones that I had, originally kind of tallied forth, and we have some cool ones. We got Vogue, we got Bray. All right. We have Ultimus, the level 20 fighter, and Talking Mongoose. I think you know which way. I think you know which way I'm gonna go, and that is Talking Mongoose. Ultimus sounds like he's kind of a lot like Acer the Best. That was a character I used to play. His name was Acer. He was the best character. A gamer lesbian talking sword that constantly criticized techniques. That's a fun one too. Let's do the sentient weapon. I'm feeling that. Talking sword. We could probably do both. Let's do both of them, and then we'll probably wrap up from there. Sentient sword that constantly insults the wielder's technique. On every attack roll of 15 or lower. Anytime they roll below a 15, it was sloppy. They can handle if the opponent riposts or counters well. I'm picturing a rapier that was possessed by the spirit of a legendary fencing instructor / master, just an incredible fencer, and so they got the rapier, and every time like they make a good attack, it would also like have the kind of reward of if they roll high enough and do a good enough attack. There's kind of like, if you had the time to learn all of the fencing lingo, if you had all the time to learn all the fencing lingo, it would say things like, your on guards, and your riposts, and your plie. I think that's a dance move. I don't know anything about fencing. I just know that they have cool things that they say when they do stuff. My silent and more of a servant, but is incredibly competent compared to the party. My comment was for the DMPC. That does sound like a DMPC right there. Complains about not being properly maintained, has elaborate cleaning and care rituals that the sword demands the wielder adhere to. Sentient weapons, I feel like, could almost be a whole day on their own. But I like that. It's pretty simple. Do we want to name that guy? If any of you have a name for that guy, we'll come back to it. But we also were talking about a talking mongoose. Talking mongoose. Awakened by awakened by... I wanted to say a druid, but then why are they not traveling with a druid? Okay. Awakened by a capricious wizard to work with him as a familiar. When the 30 days were up, the mongoose pieced out. I like the idea because there's this like aspect of awakened creatures where for the first 30 days after you awaken a creature, for anyone unfamiliar with the spell Awaken, Awaken basically makes a non-sentient thing that's living sentient. So you can be like, oh, this is an awakened tree, you can make an awakened shrub. There's a lot of things that you can awaken, but essentially... the idea I'm getting at here, the spell has this caveat where for the first 30 days, they listen to you and follow your instructions and are friendly to you, and then after the 30 days are up, the awakened creature gets to kind of like make a decision about, do I like working with this individual? Do I want to keep being in their service? And they can just decide, nah, we're done, and then walk away. I like the idea that this is one of those familiars that was just like, oh man, this was awful. I'm going to find my own way. Thank you very much. Game Master's Vault. I read a funny one about a barbarian who played through an entire campaign. Final battle, he died. The party's wizards picked up his sword and had to make a will save. The dead character was just a tool for the sword, and the sword was the real character. Yeah, that's a really cool kind of it's a really kind of cool twist. If you want to do that, if you want to do that kind of like goofy, I'm just a sentient sword operating a puppet. I think there's actually a character in D&D, or one or two even, characters in D&D Time that kind of have the same, at least, general idea of that archetype. But I do like that quite a bit. Vassal Zaiju has an incredibly sad backstory. Oh no. Was horribly mistreated by his, and Farfel said bard, so we're going to do a bard. By his bard awakener, and has gone off on his own to find a better life. And I like the idea that, like, his tragic backstory is just the 30 days. They're meeting him, like, the players are meeting him just days after he's awakened. Bartholomew's actually a puppet. The real wizard is the hat. Oh god, all of his mongoose family. All of his mongoose family were killed by Yuan Ti. And now Crowley, he's out for vengeance. So he's taken up a name. He calls himself now the Mongoose in his sworn vengeance against the Yuan Ti. And alongside his dearest compatriots, Lurk and Uchunkus. This was a character I once played in a one-shot with Crowley, where I was playing a character called the Mongoose, because basically we were told by the DM, like, you're going to be fighting Yuan Ti, and that you don't like Yuan Ti. So I made the Mongoose just a character whose entire reason for being was that he hated Yuan Ti. Trust of Flunk now has made Trust of Flub there, Jeremy was in that game, and he made Lurk, which was an abomination, whose entire character was built around the ability to lift a lot of weight. And Uchunkus was played for the first time in that game. And we just killed a lot of snakes in that particular one-shot. It was a good time. And the great thing about this talking mongoose that calls himself the Mongoose, or whatever it is, the great thing about this character is that you need no artifice to get them into your players' party. There is no world in which the players meet a talking mongoose that doesn't know what to do with his life, where they don't go, oh, you're in our party now. It's non-negotiable. You're coming with us. We love you and we'll take you in. I have never met a party that wouldn't absolutely delight at a sudden just talking animal, cute furry talking animal that would walk with them and say goofy things. Like a sad one too. Oh my god, can I not imagine that not... Like I said, immediately every character in the party is going to be like, must protect. Must protect poor talking mongoose. I don't know, that's about all I got for that guy, but I like him. Would run. And with that, I don't know, I think we've gone through quite a lot of them. We went through all the archetypes that I originally wanted to, so I think this is kind of where I'm gonna close things out for the evening. Unless you guys have anything big that you really want to slide into the last moment, I think I'm gonna cut it here. The mongoose can recognize Yuan Ti by smell. Very well. That will be the final comment here. He's a mongoose. That's pretty good, Game Masters. Again, you had some good ones. You're bringing some fire tonight. The mongoose can recognize Yuan Ti by smell. Yeah, sure. And I don't know, I think that's probably going to wrap us up for tonight. Thank you all very much for coming, for hanging out, for contributing, your ideas, and for, as always, making Worlds fun. It's not fun without you guys there, building things with me. Tune in. Other announcements? Yeah, well, tune in naturally to our other shows. Tomorrow we're doing DnDTime Talks. We're going to be talking about... What are we talking about? I think we're talking about running for power players was the thing that me and Jeremy had talked about it. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, that's definitely what it was. We're talking about running for power players, which is going to be an interesting topic. We'll see kind of where it goes. And then tune in Friday for Pete and Jeremy's DnDTime. Which is a show we host every Friday night where we play some Dungeons and Dragons. It's at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we run it with players from chat. So much love to all of y'all, and again, thank you. One last shout out and much love to the Fox in the Box for your donation of 250 bits. That is very sweet. Thank you so much. Much love to you. And again, thank you to everyone just for hanging out with us. I love you all, and I'm Pete, and this was DnDTime Worlds. Good night, everybody. Don't mind me, just fishing around looking for the key to close the thing.